Good afternoon, everybody. This is Angela Kersenbrock with the Community College Baccalaureate Association, and I am so delighted to have Dr. Mitzi here with us today for our very first interview of Community College Baccalaureate Heroes. So Dr. Mitzi began his tenure. As you know, he's the president of Portland Community College, and he began in that role September 2016. So not that long ago. Before joining PCC, he served as president of North Seattle College in Washington State. And prior to that, as the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Community Colleges within the Office of Career, Technical, and Adult Education for the U.S. Department of Education. That's quite a mouthful there, right there, Mark.
Yeah.
In Washington, he worked to advance President Obama's agenda on community colleges, and he did that through numerous partnerships between the federal agencies and national stakeholders. Though President Mitsui accomplished much in his national role, his objective has always been to return to the community college, for which we are very grateful that he's returned to that. At PCC, he has collaborated with colleagues, students, regional stakeholders to redefine the college's commitment to equitable student success. For President Mitsui, community colleges are fundamentally about the transformative power of education. And that transformative power impacts the student's family, and the communities in which they reside. As Dr. Mitsui is fond of saying, community colleges are the pathways to the middle class. And he says, this is where the opportunity lies. So welcome, Dr. Mitsui, and thank you for your time. I know that you're extremely busy. So one of the things that I really wanted to talk to you about, you and I had spoken a couple of months ago about your work in support of students who had housing and food insecurity. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Angela, thank you also for your leadership of the CCBA and the whole Community College Baccalaureate movement. And I'm sure we'll touch on the importance of CCBA and also the Applied Baccalaureate and Community College Baccalaureate movement for equity. When it comes to equity, we know a major barrier is post-secondary education access and completion. And a major barrier to post-secondary education access and completion for marginalized communities is housing and food insecurity, or basic needs insecurity. The rate of basic needs insecurity amongst community college students is very, very high. And so one of the first things we did was to take a look at the research. A organization called a research center called the Hope Center at Temple University specializes in researching basic needs and security amongst post-secondary education students, both in the community colleges and the universities. They have found startling and high rates of basic needs and security amongst 2- and 4-year college students. And so we wanted to know if that applies here in Oregon, and even more specifically, how it applies at Portland Community College. And so we commissioned a study through the Hope Center. We found, again, high rates of basic needs and security here in Oregon. And for Portland Community College, we were unfortunately in line with the state and the national experience, which is around 19 to 20% of respondents indicated experiencing homelessness. 50% plus, 51 approximately percent of students experienced housing insecurity, and 41% approximately experienced food insecurity. And this is in alignment with the national experience and with the state of Oregon. So we found very high rates of basic needs insecurity. As you can imagine, it's really hard to focus on school when you're not sure where you're going to sleep, or you're not sure where your next meal is coming from. and students were having to work 2 jobs while going to school. And it was very difficult to quit even one of those jobs in order to go back to school, let alone go back to school full time. The opportunity costs were just too high. Well, that was before COVID-19. Then the pandemic hit, and the Hope Center did another study of the impact of COVID-19. We participated in that as well here in Oregon, and found not only did the rates of housing and food insecurity increase, but now job insecurity became another concern. Nationally, about 2/3 of community college students experience job insecurity, and about 1/3 experience unemployment. So on top of all the other challenges now, our students are struggling with unemployment or on the very edge of losing employment, given the current recession. So when you add all of those barriers up, it's a daunting challenge for our students to be able to address those basic needs and go to school. And it also explains, by the way, why so many community college students attend part-time, because they have to work in order to go to school. They have to keep a roof over their heads, food on the table for themselves and their families. Well, it's hard to attend full-time when you're working full-time. And it's impossible to graduate on time if you're only taking 6, 7, 8 credits a quarter. So it impacts graduation rates. It impacts the disparity of graduation rates. We know that students of color, for example, we know that low-income students, first-generation students, are disproportionately impacted by housing and food insecurity, and now also by job insecurity. And so that's why access to those basic needs are equity issues. So what are we doing about it? Here in Oregon, Portland Community College is leading a statewide initiative called Pathways to Opportunity. And we started this about 3 years ago. And the Oregon Community College Association, through what's called the Oregon President's Council, which is the statewide group of community college presidents, approved an allocation through our strategic initiative fund. This is a statewide fund that is contributed to by all 17 community colleges to fund something called Pathways to Opportunity. Mm-hmm. This is a statewide initiative to integrate public benefit services and funding around students to help students meet their basic needs so they can go to school and focus on school and graduate. So one example of that, one benefit program, is called STEP. It's the SNAP Training and Education Program. It's run by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and it's for food stamp recipients. What the USDA does is for every dollar that the community colleges spend on helping students to be successful and educating students, training students for high-wage career pathways, the USDA reimburses us 50 cents. And then that $1.50 gets matched at 75 cents. And that's how we not only grow the funding, but how we serve more students. Through that one funding stream alone, we've been able to expand the STEP program statewide. All 17 community colleges now participate. We've been able to increase new federal funding. This year, I think we're projecting over $4 million in additional funding statewide.
Oh, fantastic.
It can be used for tuition, it can be used for childcare, it can be used for transportation, it can be used for books, supplies, whatever students need in order to be successful. That's one funding stream. We're also, of course, leveraging federal financial aid through Pell and state financial aid. We're looking at TANF, employee, and also employee-related daycare, Section 8, low-income housing tax credit, housing, and other ways that we can braid together and integrate these different funding sources and streams in order to help students to meet their basic needs and go to school and be successful. there's nothing like education and training, and you talked about the transformative power of education, and that is absolutely true. In the last recovery, 99% of the jobs created during the last recovery required some post-secondary education and training.
Right.
And so we needed that pathway. We need it now as well in the coming recovery if we're going to have an equitable recovery. And we have to be able to help our students to access the supports they need in order to come to school, graduate, and get into a great career post-recession. Another thing that we're doing specifically here at Portland Community College, in addition to leading the statewide work, is a partnership with our local housing authority. The Portland Housing Authority is called Home Forward, and we're partnering with them where we have property and they have affordable housing bond dollars. We bring the property to the table, and then they pay for the capital construction of affordable housing. Mm-hmm. Goal is to be able to provide subsidized and affordable housing for students with housing insecurity. Of course, because it's FHA, because of the federal, the Fair Housing Act, we do have to make it available to anybody.
Oh, I see. Not just students.
Not just students, exactly. However, we will certainly let students know that this is available and encourage our students who are housing insecure to apply. That is being designed now, and it will be in the same plot as our rebuilt workforce training and development center. And it's going to become an opportunity center where we will co-locate and integrate a variety of different programs, services, and funding streams with the Department of Human Services. And so we want to have an integrated service center where we can have a physical location to integrate the benefits that students access, and to have that very close to affordable housing, and have it very close to training. So all the parts of the upward mobility ladder are in close proximity to each other.
Mark, that is really fantastic. You know, it often feels like all the services that we need are there, you know, for the most part, but to bring them all together is really such a difficult thing. And for somebody who is not college ready, or is not, you know, their parents didn't go to college, or they're not, they just don't have the bandwidth to try to find all these services and knit them all together for themselves. And so it sounds like very intentionally, you all have knitted these services together to create kind of a security blanket for students, to allow them to do what they need to do so that they can advance.
Absolutely, that's exactly it. Right now, we're working on doing that virtually because a lot of the public benefit applications are online and remote. Right. And so Pathways to Opportunity has held a virtual summit, bringing all 17 community colleges together, along with the Department of Human Services and the Oregon Employment Department, to talk about how we can help students apply for benefits online. In fact, in August, we had a cross-training sponsored by the Department of Human Services and the Oregon Employment Department for professionals from all 17 community colleges to learn how to help our students apply for unemployment and to apply for other benefit programs online. And we're also providing funding to each individual community college to reach out into each of their communities and their community-based organizations to establish additional partnerships that are very localized and very specific, as well as to the local DHS office or OED office and other partners, in order to create these kinds of linkages and strategic alliances and integration that students have more seamless opportunity. You know, when students have to take 3, 4, 5 bus routes across the city, consume, you know, who knows how many hours to apply for one benefit and another benefit, SNAP or TANF, childcare. Not only does that consume a lot of time, it can be very demoralizing.
Yeah.
One line waiting in another line.
And I'm sure a lot of people drop out of that system because it's just too difficult to access everything that they need.
Right, right. Exactly. And so our goal is to make that more efficient for students and then help more students integrate those resources so that they can get the support they need. We did some preliminary estimates of what the average unmet need of community college students is in Oregon. And then we took a look at the potential funding available through food stamps, through STEP, and through the Earned Income Tax Credit. Just 3 potential funding sources out of dozens that could be tapped. And we came up with a potential dollar total that far exceeded the average unmet need.
Really?
In other words, the money that students need for that support, it's already available. It's already out there. What's missing is the key to unlock that funding.
Right.
And that key is the benefits integration. You know, in education, we've got the Pell Grant. And in U.S. Department of Agriculture, they have the SNAP program. In HUD, they have Section 8. But we don't have anyone pulling them all together.
Right.
At the same time for students that are hungry and homeless. So that's the work that we've plunged into and that we're forging ahead on. We are making some headway. We're getting some traction and you know, it's needed now more than ever.
Right. I was thinking about that, you know, the person shows up, you know, when the need is the greatest. And, you know, I know we've had need for many, many years in our nation, but I don't think anything's brought it to the forefront as much as the experience that we're having now with COVID. And the protest and, you know, the cries for social justice. So it sounds like you're just absolutely at the perfect time, at the right moment.
We're working at it. It far exceeds right now our capacity, and that's the challenge. And we would really love additional state support to broaden our benefits navigation work so that we can help more students access this. You're absolutely right that this is a key social justice and racial justice issue as well. Historic housing discrimination and the transfer of wealth between generations and communities of color being impacted by housing discrimination over the years had a terrible residual effect on many, many generations of people of color. And also when we looked at the last recovery and we looked at gains in median household income and disaggregated that by race, some communities of color, for example, the African-American community here in Portland, did not really benefit from the last recovery.
They didn't recover.
Right. Yes, the median household gains were very small compared to white families or the average increase in median household income. And so there are communities that were already on the edge now with recession and the pandemic have been pushed over. So time is of the essence, resources are of the essence. And
we don't have 100 years to do this, do we?
No.
No.
And the community colleges are the right vehicle. I mean, we are democracy's college. I mean, we are where our nation has turned when we've looked at increasing the diversity of higher education and creating upward mobility. That's why the community colleges were conceptualized in the Truman Commission report in 1947 is to expand opportunity and to expand the American experiment of democracy in education. So we're at a critical point in our nation's history right now. And I do believe our community colleges, if we receive the investment and in the right areas, that we can continue to not only play that critical role, but also to enhance it.